Good evening and welcome. Welcome to our final webinar of the week for our incoming Tommies and their families. My name is Linda Bachman. I serve as Dean of Students at St. Thomas, and I'm happy to be with you this evening to facilitate our panel. Many of the panelists that you see have been on panels throughout the week, and tonight is a chance for you to ask some last questions of our experts. And hopefully we'll end this evening with you feeling like you've had all your questions answered this week. For those of you who are attending, our parents, I just want to remind you, you're automatically muted. This is to keep the audio clean for everybody listening in. And I'm going to encourage you to use the question and answer function to submit questions throughout our webinar. We will answer those questions both live or via a text back to you. And so our format this evening, we will start with some panel introductions, and then I will be asking panelists questions that you have submitted through the Q&A feature or that you may have submitted when you registered for the webinar. We'll do our very best to get through as many questions as possible, and we are recording this webinar, so it will be posted to the admissions website in the coming days. So as we get started, again, my name is Linda, and I've been the Dean of Students at St. Thomas for just under 5 years. Our work in the Dean of Students office, I always like to highlight it as we are here to help students navigate any challenges they may face at the university. We are advocates for students, and a big part of our mission is to foster a learning environment that is inclusive and safe for all students on campus. So again, I'm thrilled to be with you, and I should highlight to you also that I am also the parent of a first-year college student. So a year ago now, I was sitting in many of your shoes as my daughter made her college decision. So I'm feeling for all of you with all of the different emotions that are part of this decision-making process. So with that, I'm going to start and ask the panelists to introduce themselves. And I'll start with Susan Anderson.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Susan Anderson. My title at St. Thomas is I'm the Director of Academic Support and Compliance. And what that means is that I have supervisory responsibilities in two departments, academic counseling and disability resources. And I work with an amazing group who supports students. In academic counseling, we do things like assist students with their major declaration process and degree planning. We help them with time management and study skills. And in disability resources, that staff makes sure that we are ADA compliant and that we provide accommodations for students inside and outside of the classroom in various ways. And I've worked at St. Thomas for 14.5 years. And what I say repeatedly on panels like this and when I'm just with my friends is that St. Thomas is a really fun place to be an advisor. And that's because we get to know our students. One of our values and convictions is personal attention, and it plays out in our daily work. And we just love to see students develop and grow. And we develop and grow right with them. And it's just a really amazing place to be. And so I'm happy to be here tonight and respond to any questions that you have about academic counseling or disability resources.
Thank you, Susan. And now we have the pleasure of having the parent of a current Tommy with us this evening. So Jennifer.
Hi everyone, I am Jennifer Singson. I am what you call a Tommy mommy. My daughter Priscilla is a junior, and we are from Eden Prairie, Minnesota.
Thanks, Jennifer. Leah Fulton.
Good evening. My name is Leah Fulton, and I'm one of 3 assistant deans in the Dean of Students office. I also serve as the university's parent liaison. I've been at St. Thomas for about a year now and have worked in higher education for about 10 years. And I echo Linda's sentiment that I often will say to students that our office is a hub. So if a student isn't sure what to do, where to go, or who to start with, they can always start with our team and with myself in particular. I'll share a bit more later, but give leadership to what functions as our care team. And it really is intended to support students who are experiencing extenuating circumstances, to help coach and advocate and connect them to the resources that allow them to be successful, to thrive inside and outside of the classroom.
Thank you, Leah. Father Blake?
My name is Father Lawrence Blake. I'm the university chaplain and director of the Center for Campus Ministry here. Our office seeks to meet the spiritual needs of all of our students. We have robust programming in the area of worship and spirituality, service, and social justice. We're often a place where students just come to hang out because they want to have a quiet place to study or to talk with one another. We also provide opportunity for students to visit with us in a confidential counseling setting. I'm happy to be with you tonight. I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Father Larry. Aaron Mackey.
Thanks, Linda. Hello, everyone on the call. Aaron Mackey, Associate Dean of Students and Director for Residence Life. I am a Tommy alum, undergraduate and graduate. I've also worked at the university now for a little over 20 years doing athletics work and campus life, and I've been in this role now directing our residential life program, living and learning on campus now for about 15 years. Welcome.
Thanks, Aaron. Gigi.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful evening. My name is Gigi Giordano, and I'm a psychologist at the Center for Wellbeing, specifically in the area of counseling and psychological services. The Center for Wellbeing is our integrated help, support, and resources for students on campus. So we offer physical health, mental health, spiritual care. We offer nutrition, health promotion, and violence prevention, all within the same resource for students. I look forward to talking more about our services and how we support students throughout the evening.
Thank you, Gigi. And Chris Roach.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Roach, and I'm the Director of Financial Aid and proudly serve as a member of the enrollment management team. I'm also the mom of a college senior set to graduate in May, and we're really excited about that. But just know that I understand the process that you're walking through right now in terms of choosing a college, and I also understand what it's like to help a child navigate those important 4 years. The Financial Aid Office is here to serve our students and parents, just as you've heard from the other panelists. That's our #1 priority, and we do that in a number of ways. First and foremost, I would want you to know that every student is assigned a personal financial aid counselor. And what's fantastic about that is that this is a counselor who will get to know you, your student, their story, and they will be with you for 4 years. We hope that in having that sort of a safety net relationship, we're able to build trust, and we're able to just really help you navigate any challenges that come along. More specifically, we help students navigate financial aid processes from filing the FAFSA to securing loans to planning for life after graduation and everything in between. We provide one-on-one counseling on topics like managing costs, financing options, how to plan financially for things like studying abroad, and how you might go about paying your bill. And most importantly, like you've heard other panelists say already, we're here to help when life happens. We have a special circumstance process and an appeals process that is very robust, and we make every effort through those tools to try to help you manage costs as the inevitable challenges happen that life is naturally throwing at us. So we're excited to be here tonight and looking forward to answering questions.
Thank you, Chris. And Kristen Hatfield.
And I should unmute myself before I talk. Hi there. I'm Kristen Hatfield. I'm Director of Admissions, and I work with the team that's been working with your students throughout this whole process. We've had the honor and pleasure of reviewing applications and answering questions and walking your students through the entire admission process, and we're excited to be at this stage of their senior year. I'm a proud Tommy myself. I have both my undergrad and my master's degree from St. Thomas, and I have been at the university for a little over 20 years myself. So Erin and I have been working together quite a long time. And finally, I'm the mom of 3. My oldest is actually a junior in high school. So I am looking forward to being in your shoes a year from now. And I am just excited to walk through the journey, as I'm sure you've enjoyed every step of the process with your own children this year. It's an exciting time, and we've had so much fun working with the students, and we're excited to answer your questions tonight. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, Kristen. All right, so this is our illustrious panel, and I've been watching questions come in, and I'm excited for the conversation that's ahead. I'm going to start with a question that actually came in through a registration from a parent, and I'm going to direct it to Assistant Dean Leah Fulton. And the question is, what kind of programming has been offered to current students to keep our campus community alive during this challenging time of COVID-19?
That's a great question. I'll start by saying a lot. There's been a lot of different kinds of campus programming with our value of personal attention for service areas across the campus. As things have unfolded around COVID-19, different people have taken different approaches to be responsive in multiple ways to different needs of students. So I'm going to give you a few that I want to make sure I don't forget. The Center for Student Achievement, so part of where my co-panelist Susan's area sits, has offered a number of services, including tutoring and academic coaching. Disability resources has continued to be available for students whose disabilities may impact the ways that they can engage in an online environment, have continued to be very responsive. Susan's gives leadership to our academic counseling office that expanded a number of its services, including academic coaching for students who may need some additional support in the online environment. And through the Center for the Common Good, there's continued to be resources for students who may experience food insecurity, but there's also a number of areas that provided some programming that's more about just community building and engagement, even from a distance. So Campus Life has provided some of those resources. Our Office for Student Diversity and Inclusion Services has been another area that's done that. Linda and I both serve as part of our Proud to Be First generation student committee, and we've provided a number of resources. So that's kind of a little bit of a hodgepodge of the programming and service side to give you an idea of what some of those things have looked like. My work as part of our care team has also continued. So I've been on the phone with students, connecting over Zoom one-on-one with them to find out what needs are and how we can meet those needs. So that's a little bit of a highlight there, but that'll give you a sense of just how robust programming has continued to be even in this environment.
Thank you, Leah. And then I'm going to ask one other question that was submitted with registration, and then I'm going to pop to some of the live questions coming in right now. But I think this one is one that was likely on a lot of parents' minds. I'm going to direct it to Gigi. And the question is, or a statement, that our high school senior class, this high school senior class, was born during 9/11 and are graduating school and beginning college in a pandemic. Their life chapter has been bookended by traumatic events. How does St. Thomas support and our students through fear, through grief? And I think you could just give that into a bigger question too of how do we support students during difficult times and difficult situations?
Thanks so much, Linda. And again, I think you really named it in that at the base of this is really thinking about how St. Thomas, how we as a university really prioritize our community. I think right now we're in a situation that is continuously evolving and evolving rapidly. And I think a foundation of the university, even before this, was the prioritization of the health and wellness and safety of our community, and that we continue to think of ways to adapt to this and to serve students in a way that meets the ever-changing needs. I think when you think about the unique experience that this particular generation is having right now, it's really important to acknowledge that this situation comes with various emotions, from exhaustion to anger to fear and sadness. I think one of the many things that I can say as you think about talking to your students is to really encourage your families to acknowledge that the feelings that we're all having are normal, are human feelings, and that we're all feeling them to a different extent in a different way. And to be genuine about the reactions that you're having, modeling ways to cope and care for yourself and others during a time like this, especially for folks who are kind of taking this big step of starting this next journey in their experience. I think one of the big things is, again, to discuss the fears, discuss the expectations, and be forthcoming with your own and ways that you can be present and supportive of your student. You know, again, feelings of loss and grief are really normal during a time like this. These students are losing things like graduation and prom and saying goodbye to their friends in a way that they had planned. And so again, I think for us, it's really important to be able to give the student space to acknowledge the things that have changed and support in creating ways to find those spaces again, creating new ways of study spaces, finding new ways to connect, because we all need connection at a time like this. I think being mindful of how families have access to different resources right now and how they're able to communicate and set expectations with each other. You know, it's important to, again, also highlight boundaries as students are adjusting and, again, moving on to this new environment of the university. How can you set expectations with your student around what you will communicate about, how you will communicate about things. You know, again, the services that we provide at the Center for Wellbeing and across the university are, again, consistently prioritizing student needs and student wellness. And so we've always prioritized having healthcare available right on campus to students, both physical health counseling, individual counseling, group counseling. And so I think, again, really coming back to themes of community, of connection, and the importance of really just acknowledging those unknowns for students right now are all really valuable at this time. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks, Gigi. So this next question, I'm going to ask two people to respond to it. So the question is, what are the biggest strengths of St. Thomas? And I would love to hear, Jennifer, from a parent perspective, if you would share what you see as a strength of St. Thomas. And then I'm going to move it over to Kristen Hatfield, who's been here a really long time, and to talk about strengths from your perspective. So Jennifer, if you're willing to tackle that one first.
Sure. So I think one of the strengths that I really like about St. Thomas is its size. My daughter and I toured a lot of colleges and found that some of the larger colleges were harder to talk to. And so I really like that it's a smaller college. I feel like we get personal attention.
Thanks, Jennifer. Kristen?
All right, thanks. Well, we get this question a lot in the admissions office, obviously, and I have been able to answer it both from a professional standpoint, knowing what families are interested in as they're looking through the process, but as Linda referenced, definitely a personal standpoint too. It's a mix. I know you said, hopefully you said strengths, because I have more than one. I'm going to talk about just the community feel. I mean, as I look at all the faces on the screen, I just want everyone to understand and realize what a community your student will be part of if they become a Tommy. I mean, the people at the campus care tremendously about students, and they want students to succeed, and they want to help students create the best possible path and create a really bright future for themselves. And that comes through in every decision that's made. And I've been at the university for as long as I have, simply because that's the kind of environment that I found, as both as a student and then as a staff member too. We always ask first, like, well, what's the best interest for the student? What would I want if I were this person? How can we help them? And how can we help them succeed? And how can we challenge them too to get them to where that they need to be? And then there's other just less interesting things, but I think our location is one of our biggest strengths. It definitely, being in a Twin Cities metro area in a very wonderful part of St. Paul that's not right in the heart of the city, but has the city within a 10 to 15-minute drive with lots of trails and places for people who need to be outdoors and experience that, but then also the city with its internship opportunities and just all of the opportunities to network and actually do an intern while you're a student at the same time, because everything, having a big metro area in your background is huge. That to me is another strength. So I'll stop there. There's plenty more where that came from, but those are probably my two favorite.
Thank you, Kristen. And Susan Anderson, there's two in the queue that I'm going to bundle for you, okay? And the first one is to talk about what majors are popular majors at St. Thomas, but also to talk about how much input students have in their first year schedule. So maybe you can just talk a little bit about the process of how students get their fall semester class schedule.
Glad to do that. I'll kind of talk about the majors first. There was two questions, like what are the popular majors? And there's over 150 majors, lots of interest in our business programs, in our engineering programs. I would say are two right off the top of my head that we have a lot of interest in, and we're helping students kind of map through the sequences required for those majors. Pre-health and science STEM majors. Psychology is another, I'd say, more liberal arts major that's very foundational to a lot of interesting careers and graduate work. We have some interesting other, kind of nuanced programs that I guess maybe aren't as big in number, but they're unique, like the Justice and Peace major is very unique to St. Thomas, and just a really nice match with other majors. So I could go on and on about, how students can even individualize majors with a combination of things. So there's just a huge variety, and it's fun to see the interest that students bring and how we can kind of help match them with different combinations of things at St. Thomas. And our faculty are amazing in the same way, just trying to help students find the path that meets their passions. As far as registration goes, and this is kind of a unique time, not kind of unique, it is unique. I would say in a traditional kind of way, if we were hosting an orientation program in the summer, students would come to campus mostly during the month of July. We would ask them to do things before they would come and be on campus with us, like take placement exams. And we have a pretty elaborate online questionnaire we call the course preference form. So we gather very detailed information about every single student through that questionnaire. Things like their interest in different majors. And many students, by the way, I just want to say, are not sure about what they want to major in, and that is fine. We love working with students through that decision-making process. So But we ask about that. If there's interest in particular areas, it's important for us to know about that. We want to know things like, have you previously earned college credit? And if so, we need to know some specifics about that, so your first semester enrollment can complement the things that you've already done. We want to know other logistics, like if you're interested in some of these great opportunities on campus, like an athletic team or maybe a music ensemble or other things like that. And so then we take that into account, and students would come to campus and pull a schedule together with the assistance of academic counselors and faculty advisors who help them with the logistics, so they get some practice at that. Now, this year is going to be a bit different because we don't have a plan to bring people together in a group on campus. So we're going to still do all the things that I described in terms of have students take placement exams. All this can be done remotely, submit a course preference form, and our counseling team is going to put together a preliminary schedule for every student. And then there's going to be an opportunity to have individual consultations with advisors to do some changes and tweaks and things as the summer progresses. So I would say when we put the schedule together, we are taking into account, they will rank courses and we'll teach them through a Canvas course about our degree requirements and other things. And will be available for all kinds of questions through that process too. So I hope that gives some sense of how it rolls out. Glad to answer more questions individually of anybody who has questions after this panel as well.
Thank you, Susan. Erin, Mackie, I'm going to direct a couple of questions to you related to housing. So I'm going to bundle a couple, and to talk about factors to consider related to choosing housing, like choosing a roommate, thinking about a living learning community. And then if you can also talk a little bit about move-in dates and what parents should expect around move-in. Should they plan on staying over the weekend? Maybe talk a little bit about our welcome weekend and move-in.
Sure. Thanks, Linda. For those who have deposited already for their housing and class deposits, you have already received information to complete a housing preference form. So just as Susan talked about, a course preference form where you share with us your needs and your wants and your interests and the things that you're looking forward to. The housing preference form does the same thing. And the unique part about the first year experience for us is that housing and academics are connected through that first year experience. So many of you already in completing that housing preference form, or your students, I should say, in completing that housing preference form, have already let us know if you're interested in a living learning community or in a theme-based learning community. These are communities that meet our first year experience core requirement. The living learning community specifically is connected to housing, and that then impacts your housing assignment. So if your student is interested in living in one of these communities where you take a course in common with other first year students that you will also live in a community with, we assign you to the hall of that LLC. We assign you to a roommate who will be in that LLC. And then we bring you in early to connect with the faculty and engage in that work. So that's one of the pieces that are already started. And then we share that information with Susan and her team, and that helps inform the course preference form and of course your course schedule as well too. On that housing preference form are several other pieces too. It gives you an opportunity to rank your LLCs, or to say a TBLC. Again, living learning community is LLC, theme-based learning community is TBLC. It lets you rank hall preferences. So if you're thinking that you want to be in one of our theme-based learning communities, it gives you an opportunity to say what halls then are most interesting to you with a ranking system. We also ask some questions, and this is where we get information to help pair you up with a roommate, if you will. And so it's not complicated questions, but how sleeping patterns, and how would you like your room to be used in terms of for studying or for socializing and different things. And so some just real simple basic questions. And then we have a housing deposit date as well too, which is the date you put in your housing deposit. And we put all that information together. It's all preference information. and we then create a housing assignment for your student, and that information gets communicated out at the end of July. We wait for our orientation and our course schedules and everything to get done to make sure that the students are comfortably set into their classes, especially for the living learning communities. And then we give you the housing assignment after that, and that will have the hall that you would be living in and the room and roommate information, as well as contact information for your roommate too, so you can start to get to know each other and talk about moving and what to bring and what not to bring. For students, if you're one of the students who thinks you might know who you want to live with already, or is coming from high school, or has found a friend on Facebook, or all these different ways that people find each other, that's fine too. In a couple of weeks here, the week of May 11th, we'll be sending out information that will give further instruction to let you know how to preference a roommate. And that is a real simple way to do that too. We make sure that both students have preferenced each other before we just go ahead and assign anyone. And if there's any conflict there, we go ahead and reach out individually over the summertime to make sure that it's a good pair. So there's no pressure to find a roommate. About 60% of our incoming students say, hey, Residence Life, I'll fill out this preference form and I'll give you good information, and I am good with whoever you pair me with based on the preferences. And that's about 60%. And over the years, I've been doing this 15 years. There's no correlation between finding your own roommate or us pairing you up with one. It really just comes down to, once you're on campus, making sure you're practicing good communication skills. You utilize your resident advisor, and we've seen great roommate relationships, and we've seen ones that struggle, and we get involved and we mediate conversations and we make it work from there as well too. So I think that's just some of the next steps in the process and some of the ways that we'll match people up. Then in August, we'll send out information to everyone who's, again, going to be living on campus with some good instructions about how to do that. So that last week of August there, first week of September, as we lead into Labor Day weekend, we will start moving students in. We call it move-in week. And the reason why it's a week-long period of time is that, if you're an athlete, if you're coming into some of our early experience programs, our entrepreneurship school has a great program, an innovation immersion program. We have other colleges and schools who will bring some students in early to participate in different activities. As I mentioned, our living learning communities come in early. They connect with their faculty. We bring all of our living learning community students together and do kind of a big party, if you will, on one of the nights, and a meet and greet and just some community building. And then the next day, they're with their faculty, just getting to know each other before classes even start. Over the weekend then, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, we hold what we call a welcome days, and that's really an extension of orientation. It's in person, and we take that opportunity to learn. So there's some learning that is going on there, some good foundational things that we think our college students really need to know and will benefit from before classes start. A lot of time is also spent connecting. How do you make some friends, develop some relationships, get to know people? Small group, big group, it's really just an extended orientation so that your student starts classes then on that Wednesday feeling comfortable with campus. They know their way around. We do some tours. Hopefully they've got some connections with some other students and some friends, not just their roommate. They've met their living learning communities or their theme-based learning communities, their first year experience course students, and they're just ready to really start the year successfully.
Thanks, Aaron. Chris Roach, there's a few questions that have come in. One is related to billing and asking if you could talk a little bit about the billing process. Is it semester? Is it monthly? And then alongside that, if you could talk a little bit about how work study works.
Sure, let me give that a go here. What happens typically is the business office actually posts the charges to your student's account. That normally happens July, early August. Then the financial aid that you've been awarded gets posted against that bill. And that happens again over the course of August. And payment normally begins in September. You have the option of paying the entire semester at once. You have the option of paying on a monthly basis. You have the option of looking at various finance plans to try to mitigate the cost and spread it out over time. So that's a little bit about the billing process. I don't anticipate that there will necessarily be changes with that process this year, but as you heard other panelists say, everything is sort of in a state of flux, and we just want to be responsive to that as it unfolds. In terms of work study, that's a little bit different. It's not like something like a Pell Grant that gets posted against your bill when the semester starts. Work study is like a real job, right? Students need to seek employment, and we did that purposely so they learn how to go and search for a job. Our HR department will be posting job opportunities on their websites for students to review, and then they have the opportunity to go and apply wherever they'd like. Traditionally, that's places like various academic departments, the athletic facilities, certainly food service. A lot of our offices employ students in a number of different ways. So again, those jobs will get posted over the summer, and students can seek employment. Now, students get paid those dollars as they earn them, just like a real job. And you have to decide as a family, are those funds going to get posted and pay against the tuition that you owe, or are you going to allow your student to take those dollars and use them as spending money? And over my years in this business, I can tell you that is a really important conversation to have as a family, because often the students think those dollars are for pizza and mom and dad think it's going to pay tuition. So that's a little bit about that.
Thank you, Chris. Father Larry, there's a question that has come in asking about the role that the Catholic faith or the Christian faith plays in the experience at St. Thomas. The question also asks about the curriculum in classes. So I'm not sure if you feel like you can answer that piece as much as a piece about what role does the Catholic faith and the Christian faith play, how does it play out at the University of St. Thomas?
Sure. Well, thank you, Linda. And I am happy to answer that. In our mission, we talk about the fact that we're rooted in the Catholic tradition. And so really, our office, in cooperation with the Office of Mission, does a lot of work across the campus, continually promoting that mission statement that we are an institution rooted in the Catholic tradition. All that you would expect to see, I think we can say your student would experience here, opportunities for Mass daily, opportunities to come to confession, opportunities to seek out a priest for spiritual direction. All of those are available. In addition, we have opportunities for students to gather in what I would call retreat settings, spiritual growth groups. Those are constantly going on throughout the school year. So I remember somebody saying once, your student can be as Catholic as they want to be here at the University of St. Thomas. And I think that's very, very true. We have many, many opportunities. Answering the question about the curriculum might be a little bit harder for me. You're probably all aware that we went through a curriculum review and change. I do know that theology continues to be part of our core curriculum, just as it has been for many, many years here at the University of St. Thomas. So all students will be required still to take a course, 2 courses, I believe, or a course, I should say, in theology, 1 in philosophy, and then a 3rd in either of those 2. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Father. Susan, if you could touch for a moment on when students should expect to get their schedules. I think you talked about that a little bit before. And a little bit about placement tests. Sounds like people are wondering about placement tests.
Indeed, yes. Yes, and I want to confirm the kind of this grouped area of philosophy and theology from the last question. That's right, correct. The question is about placement exams, and sorry, Linda, I already missed the first part of it.
and when they should expect to see their schedules.
Yes. So, and as Erin mentioned, we're going to communicate with the incoming students the week of May 11th. So we'll have kind of the dates and everything. So that will be out there for everybody just to have in front of them. We're going to have the priority deadline for the submission of the things I talked about, like the course preference form and placement exams, is June 17th. So just to have all that information. And then we're going to work on the details of all of the individual schedules. And mid-July is really when we'll have the reveal of this kind of first round of the schedules. The goal right now is around July 15th. I don't want to hang my hat right on that specific date, but it's going to be right in that zone. And so I think that's the timing. And then the housing kinds of information will follow, as Erin mentioned. Placement exams. We will provide instructions for placement exams, and we have them really in 4 areas. We have an English placement exam, mathematics, world languages or modern and classical languages, and chemistry. And so not everybody needs to take placement exams in all those areas, and it kind of depends on the background that you bring and the major that you may be interested in. So as an example, if you're interested in a STEM major and we base an initial kind of placement on sub-scores of the ACT, and so some students will have a score that doesn't require any additional testing in order to enroll in a course that's appropriate for the major that they're considering. For others, their placement doesn't match as well, but in many cases, students are in the process of taking more courses in that very area. So they just need to have another opportunity to demonstrate what they know. And so we have exams that are online, and then we personalize that list for students based on things they tell us, and we'll be glad to give access and coach them through that. So that's what I can tell you about placement exams, I think, in a broad way right now.
And we have questions coming in about commuter students. And Leah Fulton, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about supports that are in place for our first-year students who are going to be commuters.
Yeah, so I mentioned that I'm one of 3 assistant deans who work with Linda and Dean of Students Office, and one of my other colleagues gives leadership to a number of commuter programs and resources. It includes a commuter mentors program where students, first-year commuters in particular, are connected with returning students who are also commuters who can offer tips and insights, resources around how to navigate college life as a commuter, from parking to time management to issues around budgeting, meal planning, packing food, and managing some of those kinds of things. Obviously, weather, as we get into the winter and students are planning things around commuting, they do some programming. So there's a number of resources that are available. We also have a colleague who works with students around questions of transportation. Do I drive? Do I bike? Do I take the train or some other form of public transportation? So there's several resources in that regard. There's also a lounge where commuter students are able to kind of hang out, spend time. It's home base. It's close to my office, so it's a joy. There's a few groups who spend time there, and every so often we kind of hear these bursts of laughter, which is a welcome kind of unexpected surprise that kind of comes out throughout the day. But it's a real, I would say, hub for community building for a number of commuter students.
Thanks, Leah. And Jennifer, there's a few questions that have come in looking for that parent perspective. One is around communication from the university. How do you as a parent get communication from the university and feel like you know what's happening?
Well, a number of ways. My daughter and I are very close, so she tells me a lot about what's going on. These days with text messaging and FaceTime, it's easy to communicate with your kid if you want to, and her and I do communicate. So I get a lot of it from her. I get a lot of emails, and so the emails always have links to other resources that I can access. So it's primarily those two.
Thank you. And Leah, do you want to comment on the parent newsletter and the information that you send out?
Yes, there is a parent newsletter. I'm not sure if we can get it in the chat or not, or if I can send it to someone on our site to make sure folks can access it. But we send a monthly parent newsletter, and it's developed by in partnership with a number of offices across campus that really provides kind of time-sensitive information and ways that parents can support students. Our hope is for parents to really be available as partners in terms of supporting students as they become adults and become more independent. And so understanding what does it look like to continue to be a support and a resource even as my student becomes more independent. And so the parent newsletter is a way for you to stay in the know, to be able to ask nudging, thoughtful questions, and to really to be in partnership with your student and with us here at the university.
Thank you, Leah. And there's Erin Mackey, I'm going to direct this question to you. There's two questions related. One is about opportunities to develop leadership skills. So ways that students can develop leadership skills at St. Thomas, and also just opportunities for involvement outside of the classroom.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. Fantastic question. Wow, there's a lot. So we'll talk leadership. We have a variety of areas across campus who have what we call student leadership positions. So very formal. There's an application process, an interviewing process. A lot of them are paid positions. Some aren't, but a lot of them are paid positions where you serve as an intern and you're really doing broad leadership for the campus. It might be like you do in high school a little bit with maybe a student council. It might be our undergraduate student government. It might be a programming board for diversity activities, or for STAR, which is our kind of campus-wide activities. We in Residence Life have a residential connection team that provides and plans events for our residence halls and around campus. We in Residence Life within each hall, if you're living on campus, have a community event board. This is not a paid position, but it's an opportunity for students to start to explore their leadership and plan events and kind of be role models within their hall if they're looking to do that. A lot of our colleges and our schools on the academic side as well too have opportunities for students to engage in leadership and get involved and be mentors and be peers and do some tutoring and a lot of different things. So there's, if you have a student who's looking to really hone those skills and develop those skills, build a resume, it's a fantastic way to build a resume. The opportunities really are endless. There are also great ways to be involved. So, you know, we talk about kind of how to be involved too. It's a great way to meet people. We tell first years when they're incoming, you know, get involved, get involved. Well, you know, you can do that by just attending an event and showing up and being present and saying hi and meeting people. You can also do it by being one of the people who helps plan these things and put them on and implement them and carry them out, because groups who are doing that are also then meeting on the side separately, just like a club and an organization, and they're meeting each other and they're working together. And as they're developing their leadership skills, they're also becoming friends and connecting and building bonds. And so how you get involved and how you also learn and grow and develop really can be paired together in a lot of ways. And so whether you're a commuter student or whether you're living on campus, whether you're in a major that has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, as Susan talked about before, or you're in a major that's more small and intimate, there's going to be lots of opportunities for that kind of bonding and getting together. I will also say, and this isn't necessarily about leadership, but student employment, as Chris talked about earlier, one we know is a great opportunity for students to become involved in and to retain at an institution because they feel a sense of belonging. You're going to develop employment skills. A lot of us who employ students, and we, for example, in Residence Life employ hundreds of students to work our desks and all sorts of different things. Our advisors, our supervisors take a lot of pride too, and not just it being, well, complete this task or complete that task. We also talk then also about, well, how is school going? How might this apply to your resume? How might this transfer into another career or profession that you're thinking about or studying? How might you get some leadership out of this in terms of communication enhancement? So student employment where you make money can also be a great way to develop some leadership. And because you're doing it with other students, again, it's another time to meet friends, meet people, get involved, know your supervisor, get to know a department, get to know your way around campus and feel comfortable. So it can also be a great way to be involved.
Thanks, Aaron. And there's been a number of questions coming in, no surprise to any of us. Parents asking about the likelihood of us being in person this fall, or when we might make a decision on that. So I'm going to start with Susan Anderson on that, if you have any insights you would like to share.
You know, I think what I know is that there's hope that we will open the campus and be and have a regular opening as we would any year. Of course, we're going to take advice from all kinds of other sources as we determine what that looks like. Right now, I know that the plan is to have in-person courses with a kind of hybrid approach. So there would be, you know, perhaps some online components of courses that haven't maybe been offered in that way, at least up until this semester and this summer. We're really offering more than we have in the past for obvious reasons, and some of it's working really wonderfully. And so to continue that and to build on that, I think is something we'll want to do this fall. So that's what we know right at this moment, and we're have different kinds of strategies that can be built in various directions depending on other direction from all kinds of places that we'll look for guidance about.
Thank you, Susan. And I'll just echo and add to that, as a staff person who serves on the University Action Response Team, we have been engaged in planning since the beginning of COVID-19 outbreak. And I would want parents to know that we have multiple scenarios that we are ready to adapt and be flexible for. And as Susan said, right now, our strong desire is that we will be opening a campus in person and welcoming students in person while following whatever Minnesota Department of Health guidelines are existing at that time for us. So certainly topics of social distancing are topics that we are talking about all the time. And Aaron, maybe you want to just comment about, because some questions have come in about what we're considering as we open the residence halls this fall. So what some of the conversations we've been having around social distancing and what that might look like.
Yeah, it's the front of everyone's mind. And as both Linda and Susan mentioned, the Minnesota Department of Health are evolving their guidelines as we go, just like our governors have been, and we're all paying real close attention. And what social distancing will be defined as or look like come August when we're moving everyone in remains to be seen. But as we've been planning different scenarios, we can tell you that one, physical space is being prepared. So we are preparing for students to arrive. So Residence Life and our facilities management team are going through right now, as our halls are mostly empty. We do have some residents still on campus. They could not go home, or home wasn't an ideal spot for them to go back to. So the halls are mostly empty. So we're going through and we're deep cleaning, we're disinfecting, we're preparing the halls and the furniture and everything for everyone's arrival. And we'll continue doing that through the summer as we go into August. So from a physical facility standpoint, we're taking all the steps we need to take. Hand sanitizer is all over campus right now, as you can imagine, and that will continue to be the case, as well as cleaning products and frequent wiping of surfaces. We work very closely with our facilities management team. They're just a wonderful group to work with. And we have building service workers all over campus. And as this came aboard in the spring, we increased that cleaning and that wiping of high touch surfaces. And so in all our scenarios that we have in terms of being back in person, that will continue as we go through it. We also have an opportunity to provide, we always had an opportunity to provide single bedrooms. A lot of our first years are not interested in single bedrooms for a lot of good reasons. They want to meet friends, they want a roommate, we want them in community living. And that's still our plan. And as they're filling out the housing preference form right now, we're seeing that same thing. They're saying, no, I want a double room and I want a roommate, and that's what I want, and that's wonderful. We will have some single bedroom opportunities. And one of our halls, Brady Residence Hall, which is not an option right now for our first years because it was going to go through a year-long renovation, we're going to pause on right now. And so that's an opportunity for us, depending on how this summer plays out with social distancing and some of the guidelines that come into play, that we might be able to spread the first year class out just a little bit to maybe offer some more singles, maybe just give some more space with community living so that it's just fewer students maybe on a floor or sharing a common bathroom. So there's lots of things that we have opportunities for that we're playing out in terms of scenarios. But I think what you need to know as parents as we are parents and we are professionals, is safety is first. The health and safety of our students will always come first. We're working very closely with the Minnesota Department of Health, and no matter what we do in terms of scenario for this fall, that will be front of our mind as we open and we help educate your students.
Thank you, Aaron. Jennifer, there's a couple of parents who've written in, and they've asked if you have any advice for how to best support your students in this summer before this big transition in life.
Yes, I think it's important for the kids before going off to school to spend time with their high school friends. I mean, they've spent 4 years with those kids, and I think it's important that they enjoy the last summer together. I think it's healthy for them to talk about how they're feeling and communicate fears, concerns, what they're excited about. So I'd recommend that. My daughter also met up with her dorm roommate that summer, so they had a chance to meet each other before they actually moved in together, and they went to IKEA and bought some, decorative items, and I think that was really fun for her. I think that eased a lot of anxiety too.
Thanks, Jennifer. Kristen, do you want to comment on, there's questions around if students, or Chris Roach, if students didn't get awarded work study, can I still get a campus job? I know that's on the mind of a lot of students and parents.
Normally, I would say the answer is absolutely yes. We allow all students to work on campus regardless of their financial need. And it will all depend, as we've already been talking about, what the state of operation is when we get to the fall. Again, keeping in mind that student safety is going to be the #1 priority. So normally, yes, anyone can seek employment on campus, and we typically have enough jobs to make that happen for people.
Thank you, Chris. I'm scrolling through here, so many good questions. I'm watching our time too. There is a question around when we might make an actual decision, and I think it's important about the fall. I think it's important we address that because, again, we know that's on the minds of a lot of parents and students. And I will just share out with you that at this point, we have not said this is the date. We have not come out and said, by the X date, we will give you a decision. And that really is so that we can remain really flexible and adaptable with what is currently happening in our environment. I can promise you that the university will be very communicative along the way, and that as soon as a decision is made, that it will be communicated out. But we're in such a state right now of seeing how COVID-19 is playing out in the state of Minnesota, that what happens in the next few weeks, in the next month, you know, really plays a role in our decision for September. So we don't have I'm being transparent and letting you know there's not a date we've established, but that we will be very communicative with you as we make those decisions. And we certainly can appreciate how important that is to everybody. I will share that my own first-year college student, that is what is most on her mind right now, as she desires to return in the fall to campus. So that's a daily conversation in my house. All right. There's been a couple questions around security, and I think it's important we talk about that. Parents are wondering about safety on campus and how safe our campus is. So I think I'm going to ask Erin Mackey to comment on security and related to the residence halls also, safety.
Sure, yeah, what another fantastic question. So in general, I think it's good to know for parents that we have staff and student leaders on campus 24/7. I think that's important to know. In the residence halls specifically, we have professional staff who live on campus, who live in the halls. These are adults who have master's degrees, who are providing oversight for the residence halls and the living and learning experience. They are supervising grad students and undergrad students. We have 80 undergraduate students who also are living on campus, living on the floors with the students. As part of the responsibilities for these professional staff, we have what we call duty. And this means 24/7 duty, where we're holding duty phones and we're conducting rounds and we are available and we're present and we're moving about. And that's from a staff end in terms of residence life. We have an outstanding public safety department who we work very closely with. They too are a 24/7 organization, and this includes holidays and nights and weekends. And when I say 24/7, it is all the time. And they too are patrolling campus via car, via bike, and via foot. Radios, they're not a police force, so they're not carrying weapons in terms of firearms. They're not a police force, but they are public safety who are very well trained. And they're moving about campus on duty, on rounds, responding to calls, responding to situations that students might be calling in about themselves or that we in residence life are calling in about. So presence matters. It really, really matters. And you as parents should know that there's a lot of presence on campus all the time. We do a great job on our campus of keeping it well lit. If you've had an opportunity to be on our campus, you know that it's beautiful. The buildings are beautiful, and the trees and the landscaping and the location, everything about it is just beautiful. And we're very, very intentional too about lighting and where the lighting is, cameras, where our cameras are, nooks and crannies, avoiding places for hiding. We know that we're in a city. We know that we have residents around us. We know that we have major freeways. We're very aware that we're in a city. And so we're very thoughtful about how we design our campus and how we patrol our campus to keep our students safe. We also talk with the students. So we're going to spend time talking with our students. So when your students come in for welcome days, if they're living in the halls, when they are in their floor meetings, their community meetings, we talk about safety. We talk about what it means to pay attention to your surroundings, to move in pairs, to not let people, quote unquote, tailgate in behind you into a residence hall, to not be afraid to ask questions of someone, to make sure you're carrying your ID around everywhere you go so that you can identify yourself as public safety is moving around. Our halls, as an example, are secure in terms of card access. So many, many years ago, we moved to all of our entrances being a card access versus a key, which is a great security measure. There's cameras on all of our entrances and all of our exits. In addition, as you enter into our halls, they are very well lit, open spaces. Again, all of our doors have keys or cards for locking, and we talk to our students all the time about When you leave your room, you lock your room. If you're in your room, you can keep your door open and build community and meet people, but when you leave your room, to lock your room. So we talk with our students about safety. We have staff on campus all the time. And as Linda referenced earlier too, our UART group, our University Action Response Team, we do a lot of tabletop exercises too, to make sure that we as a university are prepared for different kinds of situations that might happen, whether that be weather related or violence related or whatever it might be. We all know that things happen on school campuses and college campuses. And so you should know that we've got a team that is preparing all the time with tabletop exercises to make sure that we're prepared as a university too. So I think those are just some things that maybe as a parent are important to know about our campus.
Thanks, Aaron. And I'm cognizant of time. We're at 6:20 right now, so I think we're going to take one more question to try to wrap up this time together. I certainly hope it's been helpful. And one of the questions that came in, I just love it, and it's what makes us unique? What makes the University of St. Thomas unique? So I'm gonna pivot that one over to Kristen Hatfield.
Thanks, Linda. I'm so glad you got to this question because I saw it come in too, and I thought, oh, that's a great question. There's so much to say about this, and I think what's special, and it was specifically asked about what makes our students unique, and I think a lot of it has to do with how grounded in our mission we are at the university, and what an important part of weaving the mission into everything that our students do, how they learn, how they live, how they interact with each other, how they interact with the greater community. That's all a really big part of your St. Thomas experience when you come to St. Thomas. And I know, like I told you, I have a junior in high school. When I talk to her about those things, they're kind of lost on her, to be honest. You know, she's like, sure, but what's the fun stuff and how do you do this? And I think what happens to our students when they come to campus is they become part of this community. They learn so many interesting things about how to live out the mission and who they are and what they become once they leave St. Thomas is really something special. And I can see it as I watch, as I work with our first year students that are coming in. And then in the admissions office, we have a lot of interns who are upper level students, they're juniors and seniors. And just to see like what leaders they are, what community thinkers they are, how, sometimes I'm embarrassed about things that I say because their comments are so profound, so well thought out, and so focused on helping other people. And that to me really is the epitome of what we hope a St. Thomas student is and what they've garnered from their education at St. Thomas. So they get that from so many places. They get that obviously from, living together and learning together and all the great things that they learn in our classes. Our classes are very discussion based because of the sizes that they are. And I think people really challenge each other and you learn so much about yourself and about others as you're in those classes too. So, I mean, it's the full experience, and that's whether you're living on campus or whether you're not. I'm just, this again is why it's such a great place to be. And I want to say one other thing, just because I've seen a lot of questions coming in and I know we're out of time. This has gone incredibly fast. But our staff, the admissions office staff, will be following up with people if your questions didn't get answered today. And the other thing is we are available. You can call our office. Our phone is being answered between the hours of 9 and 3 right now, even though none of us are currently working on campus. We're definitely staffing our phones, and we're definitely available to set up appointments virtually or to send emails. So please reach out to your individualized admissions counselor. Each of your students has a personal admissions counselor who's sending them lots of email, and there's lots of ways to connect with them, and let's make sure that you get your questions answered if we didn't get to them tonight. So thanks.
Thank you, Kristen. And I want to emphasize that that's true for any of our panelists this evening. If you have questions that, and I agree, this went incredibly fast this evening. So if you have questions that did not get answered, I know our panelists welcome you to call or email. We're really glad that you spent time with us tonight. We're wishing you a great evening, And we are looking forward to welcoming your students to campus in the fall. So thanks so much, and stay well and stay healthy.